Hello, I'm Chris Albury, Auctioneer and Valuer at Dominic Winter Auctioneers in South Cerney in the Cotswolds in England. I'm showing today a few items that we have coming up for sale on the 8th of October in our autographs, documents, photographs, historical artefacts sale. So what connects this violin, this bicycle saddle and this 1843 published philosophy book of Descartes and Spinoza, you may ask? The answer is Albert Einstein. They all belong to him. And how do we know that? Well, they have come via Max von Laue, who was a colleague and friend of Albert Einstein and also a Nobel Prize winner. He knew Einstein from the early 20th century. He won a Nobel Prize himself. So, in 1932, Max von Laue went to visit Einstein at his summer house in Caputh in Germany, and Einstein told him that he was going to America very shortly and thought he may never return. He said to Max, I would like to give you my bicycle and the order form for the saddle. I would like to give you a violin in case your son should like to learn to play. And there is a philosophy book which my father gave me to encourage me to learn Latin. Max von Laue took these things very gratefully and looked after them for many years. The bicycle seized up, but Max von Laue kept the saddle because it was so comfortable. And following on from the war and various movements in his life, he lived in an apartment in Göttingen with his wife Magdalena. So eventually these items were consigned to Max von Laue's basement in his apartment in Göttingen, the violin, the saddle with the order form and the book. In 1950, he and his assistant, Mafalda Amiri, were in Braunschweig when they had a chance encounter with a woman called Mrs Margarete Hommrich. And this led to a friendship developing, particularly between Max von Laue's assistant and Mrs Hommrich. 2 years later, in 1952, Mrs Hommrich was going to Göttingen, and Mafalda Amiri suggested that she might like to re-meet up with Max von Laue. Max von Laue readily agreed, and so they went to Max von Laue's apartment, where she met with Max and his wife, and they had tea. Mafalda Amiri knew that Max von Laue was a physicist and explained her great admiration for Albert Einstein. And with a little further discussion, it became clear that Max von Laue not only knew Einstein, but was a very good friend with him and in contact with him in America. Later, Max von Laue said to Mrs Hommrich, "Come with me down into the basement." And they went down and they took back 4 items: the saddle, the order form, the violin and the book. And once back in the apartment, Max von Laue said to Mrs Hommrich, "I would like you to have these 4 items which were given to me by Albert Einstein. You're such a fan and you're such a nice person, I would like you to have them." That person, Mrs Hommrich, was the great-great-grandmother of the current owner, and the story of these items has been handed down from mother to daughter to daughter to daughter over the last 70 years. And now they have come in for evaluation and sale at auction with Dominic Winter. So, taking the objects in turn, the first one is this philosophy book published in 1843. It's the works of the French philosopher René Descartes and the Dutch philosopher Baruch Spinoza. Now, Einstein became very interested in the existence of God, and he had his own view on whether God existed, and in fact he adopted Spinoza's sort of pantheistic kind of philosophy about the world and a belief system in God. And this book has some annotations. Most of them are very indistinct in pencil and barely legible at all. Interestingly, they're all in the section, nearly all in the section on the existence of God by René Descartes. It has an ownership signature of someone we do not know, called Elisa, from 1867 on the front end paper. There is a label on the spine which gives the ink title of the book, which is now also indistinct, but only discernible on second, third, fourth inspection. The label is actually signed in pencil, not just once by Albert Einstein, but twice at the head and foot of the spine. And that pencil does seem to tie in with the handwriting in the book. However, Einstein was known not to be very good at languages, and his understanding of Latin was rudimentary. Does that mean he couldn't read this book? Probably he could, to a degree, to be able to make a few notes. With that book, we also have a book by Max von Laue, which was given to Mrs Hommrich at the same time when she left. This is von Laue's book on relativity, published in 1921, not inscribed. And as a little final extra that goes with this lot is a birthday wishes card from 1959 to Max von Laue, him thanking for birthday wishes and signed by him in ink at the bottom. The second item we have here is a bicycle saddle, as you can see, manufactured by Nelson. Just a sprung bicycle saddle, leather one, of the period, and we fortunately have an order form here which Einstein has completed in his hand in pencil, which he orders one saddle. It's dated 26th of March 1929 in Berlin, and at the bottom Einstein has signed it and written his address. This is on Nelson bicycle headed paper. We know that is a genuine order and we associate it with this saddle. We have no doubt that this is genuine. And the third and final lot we are offering is this violin. It was made by Anton Zunterer, a violin maker in Munich. It has a label inside dated 1894, which you can't see without close-up looking through the F-hole there. Einstein, a lot of people know he played the violin, but a lot of people don't. So it comes as a surprise to know that Einstein started playing the violin when he was 5 years old, 5 or 6, and that would have been a child's violin, quarter size. Then he would progress to a half size, 3/4 size, and eventually, when he was 11 or so, a full size violin. The story that goes with this violin, as related to Max von Laue and then to Mrs Hommrich and down through the generations, is that this was the first violin Einstein bought. The date is 1894, so we are quite confident that he bought it in 1894, just before he went to Switzerland, and where he's known to have played violin regularly. So we believe this was the violin he took with him to Switzerland. And the next violin that's documented that Einstein owned was bought in about 1919. And that is believed to be the one he took with him to America. So, how do we know that this was Einstein's violin? Well, it's anecdotal, but it goes with the saddle, it goes with the book, which is signed, and the bicycle saddle has the order form. So, all original, we believe, apart from the strings, maybe the fine-tuning screw there, that's definitely not original, and the tail loop. But the chin rest and everything else we believe is original. Now, Einstein is known to have called his violins Lina, as in violina, and when you look at the back of this one, you can see that Einstein has etched the name Lina onto the back of the violin, which is a very significant part of the provenance. When this violin came in for assessment, the bridge had collapsed, the sound post which goes inside was loose, and it, according to the family, had not been played for many, many decades. We've had that put back in place, and if you want to hear it, you'll find a clip of Theo May playing a piece of bark on our website. When Einstein went to America, shortly afterwards, he was gifted a handmade violin by someone called Oscar Stenger, and that violin sold in America in 2018 for about $500,000. In summary, Albert Einstein is the connecting factor with Max von Laue, his friend and colleague, who was the original owner of these items, and then to Mrs Hommrich in Braunschweig, who then passed them to her granddaughter, great-granddaughter, great-great-granddaughter, who is the current owner. What are these items worth? To take them in turn, we're estimating the book with the Albert Einstein signatures on the spine, Spinoza and Descartes, at £2,000 to £3,000. The bicycle saddle, well, Einstein did say that life was like riding a bicycle. You just have to learn to keep your balance. And he was famous for riding a bicycle. We're estimating this at about £50,000, sort of in line with what you might have to pay for one of his pipes, where you're able to buy one at auction. And the pièce de la résistance, the violin, what's that worth? Well, a violin that was made for him in America in 1933 by Oscar Steger was sold in 2018 for $500,000. Oscar Steger made it for Einstein in America, and Einstein later gave it to a janitor at Princeton for his son to learn to play the violin. How do we value this one? In my opinion, this is much more important. When you think that Einstein was playing violin every day for most of his life, he said he'd rather have been a musician than anything else if he had not been a physicist. And his great years as a scientist are 1905 and 1912. His papers on special relativity and general relativity. Even if we don't understand them, we all know E equals mc squared. So all that time from the 1890s through the 1900s, 1910s, up until he bought his violin in 1919, this was likely his instrument, and he would have been playing this while thinking about physics, and physics and music go together so well, and it's just incredible to think that this very instrument might have been triggering some of his great ideas while he was playing Mozart or Bach. We therefore are estimating this violin at £200,000.